Hey and welcome to Neverwinter with Aragon. So here I want to cover Cleric DPS. You'll be going as the Arbiter and running a setup like this. There are a few different ones you can use. Ultimately, these are the ones I have tested. And yeah, we can get to nearly 1.4 million in counter DPS with these test rules. In combat here, we do indeed get all of our stats maxed out as soon as we have our gear bonuses. And you can see them all just there. This table will be linked down below, but you can see exactly the powers, feats, features, and the rotation that we're using. It's very important you follow this strict rotation on Arbiter, or you will just basically not deal any good damage. You have to be very precise as to what abilities you cast in what order because of the feat Perfect Balance. You need to take advantage of that in order to restore your divinity back to full to continually cast your powers. There are some slight variations you can use, and it's primarily based on whether you're using other abilities to give you bonus divinity. For example, if you can get your hands on these arms, which can give you 25% extra divinity, you can get the Starforged ones or the Ultraviolet ones, which you can see then makes your bar here go up to 1250. And you can throw on top of that then Expanded Faith instead of Divine Equilibrium, and you end up with 1400. What this means is that you can pretty much non-stop use encounter powers, never really needing to use at-will powers at all. And that results in this bottom one here. It's not as burst damage orientated, you won't make as much advantage of artifact calls, but you will deal more reliable damage. You can see what I mean with the gameplay of the DPS test just here. We're doing the artifact call, and we are pretty much just always consuming the pips. If you want to min-max this, you don't consume your judgment during the artifact call. But you can see outside of the artifact call, it is just non-stop encounter power spam. Perfect balance triggers, divinity goes back to full, and you're back to just using more encounters. And you never need to bother with your at-will attacks. But it is gear dependent. You need to have those arms with a plus 25%. So that comes from the Master Moondancer or the Master Imperial Citadel Dungeon. So for the average player who hasn't yet got to that level, this build, this gameplay setup is not that viable. It is quite cool. You can just non-stop cast encounter powers. It's kind of unique compared to any other class, just ignoring your at-wills. But again, it's primarily for the end game level where you'll be able to mess around with that. But it ultimately can lose you out on damage if you use this route due to, consuming those divinity pips versus on a more burst orientated build, you don't consume them. You let them buff your encounters, meaning they deal more damage when you use them, allowing Prophecy of Doom to also hit for more, resulting in more burst damage, but you then have a lot of downtime. If you're unaware, the basic way to play Arbiter in single target is to have this setup. We'll go with Divine Equilibrium here and we'll switch back to just a buff arms here. It can be anything. So the first thing you want to do is set yourself up for the fight. So before you even go into combat, you need to prepare. You need to cast Javelin, Daunting, Javelin, Daunting. Then switch the Javelin over to Forgemaster's Flame. Make sure your divinity is full. And then you'll go into combat. You can use like 2 Conflagrates here. You can use then your Prophecy of Doom, your Artifact, your Daily Power, your Forgemasters, Daunting, Forgemasters, Daunting, your Perfect Balance procs, Forgemaster, Daunting, Forgemaster, Daunting. And that's the artifact call for you. You stop right there. Then you get your divinity full. And then as soon as it is full, you can go Prophecy of Doom again. You can go Forgemaster, Daunting, Forgemaster, Daunting, Perfect Balance procs, Forgemaster, Daunting, Forgemaster, and Daunting. And then back to getting Divinity full again, and as soon as you can use your Prophecy of Doom again, you'll go and use that. You can get some additional pre-pips here, and then Prophecy, Forgemaster, Daunting, Forgemaster, Daunting, Perfect Balance, Forgemaster, Daunting, Forgemaster, Daunting. So you're always ending your rotation when you're on 2 Burning and 2 Radiant stacks. That allows you, the next time you go and use your Prophecy of Doom, to do that full rotation. And that is how Cleric DPS works. It is fairly simple once you get the rhythm, but it is a bit to learn and it has a super strict rotation compared to any other class. If it's not clear, in order to get your Divinity back, you're basically using your at will, like here, and then you have these pips and you just press tab, and then you go cast it again, you press tab, and again, and so on. But you can use it as soon as the pips appear, you press tab. That way you aren't doing the full cast time of Conflagrate, which is like 1.8 seconds. Ultimately, doing that, you can see what we end up with. There is a bug, a critical bug you need to be aware of, is if you want to use Divine Equilibrium to maximize your damage, you cannot use like Expanded Faith. You wouldn't anyway, because you want to use Doomsayer. But you cannot use these arms to increase your Divinity. Why? Because any Divinity that's over the 1000 base results in your Divine Equilibrium actually giving you negative damage buff. So right now we are above 1000, so we have like minus 7.5% damage because we are like above halfway of our Divinity when our half is at 500. It reduces your damage when your Divinity is over 1000, and hopefully that bug can get fixed. But let's go and show you the topmost damage test, the entire gameplay of that. So we start things off going with Prophecy of Doom, our artifact, our daily power. You can see we have pre-stacked Radiant stacks. Once we're at about half Divinity, we use our mount power. And again, you're just using 4 Forgemasters and 4 Dauntings alternating between them. Now we're stacking some Divinity before our Prophecy of Doom comes off cooldown. We use that. Forgemaster, Daunting, Forgemaster, Daunting, so on until you're back at 2-2 on the stacks. We did have to use a Conflagrate in between, which not perfect there at all because we ran into an issue of no Divinity. We were greedy and used Prophecy straight away rather than actually getting to full Divinity. And that's because I'm also trying to keep this very tight, the timing. I have a bit of recharge speed, about 20%, in order to use 3 Prophecy of Dooms within 60 seconds. That way we're trying to keep all the timing together so that, yeah, we have an artifact call every 60 seconds, maximizing our burst. So here's the next artifact call again, same story. You can see we pre-stacked the pips there, the Radiant pips, so that we can buff our daily power, which we're using at the start. You might not want to use your daily power at the start, particularly in like uncoordinated groups, because people might not use their artifact straight away, and thus it might miss the damage. But basically the reason I'm doing it here is because we can get all of the Radiant stacks guaranteed for the daily power, giving it basically 600 extra magnitude. And otherwise you could wait during the artifact called rotation to get, say, Sudden Verdict, which is your feat, which could give you full of those judgment pips of the Radiant ones, and then use your daily. But that's a gamble. On the spam build we do it, but yeah, here you're taking time to stack anyway to get Divinity, then Prophecy, Forgemaster and Daunting alternating between them, using 4, and stopping when you're at, again, the 2-2 stacks in the top left there. It's all about timing. You have to be very perfect, and if you screw things up, you're just screwed. Like if you die, lose your stacks, you're also really just screwed. Your damage goes down the drain so quickly when things go wrong. Like Cleric DPS is so strict on timing and like which ability you're using. You have some lag and one encounter power doesn't cast and your stacks might just all be gone and then not trigger your perfect balance. Like if you're at 3 stacks of burning, 2 stacks of radiant, and you use another burning power, then bam, all of those are gone and you miss out on your perfect balance and you have to spend so much time getting divinity back. I believe the devs seriously need to improve the quality of life of Arbiter a bit, but yeah, the damage right now is pretty viable. It's there. You don't miss that much compared to other classes. It's just you require an absolute ton more coordination and perfect playing to be effective. Like everything has to go right for you to even be competitive with other classes right now. And I don't really think that is fair. So I believe Arbiter could use some increases. But yeah, that was the DPS test right there. You can see we end up with nearly 1.4 million encountered DPS, using 40 of those Forgemasters and Daunting Lights within those 3 minutes and 14 seconds. You can see we've got 10 Prophecy of Dooms, we've got 4 Golden Touch and Guardian of Faiths. So everything's, yeah, pretty perfect there. You can also see the deflect rate. We're only getting deflects on our at-will attack because we were missing then the buff with, say, the Masterwork, which was like 2% accuracy or something. Otherwise, yeah, everything is nearly perfect on that test. I do not think I really could get better than this at all. For some reason, though, our Guardian of Faith was not considering our Radiant stacks on 2 of the hits. I do not know why. You can check back on the gameplay, and I made sure we were full Radiant stacks before using our daily power on each of them. That's just getting these Radiant stacks with this at will. And once you have 6 here, that buffs your daily power to deal 600 extra magnitude. And we just were not seeing that on 2 of the hits, which were only at like 6.4 million versus like 8.3 million. Other than that, everything pretty perfect on this, other than perhaps our first mount power, which could have been 12 million because we used it like a little bit later. We cast an extra Forgemaster before using the mount. You want to just use 1 Forgemaster, 1 Daunting, and you're pretty much at like the halfway point. You can see a Forgemaster and a Daunting, and you're about halfway on Divinity. That's as good as you're going to get because the next Forgemaster is going to put you like a lot lower than you were. So once you're like bang in the middle, your mount power would deal 15% extra damage, and that's why it was a little bit lower there. So hopefully, yeah, this helps you how to play Arbiter and how to maximize your damage output. You really have to follow this for single target. If you don't, you're just going to miss an absolute ton of damage. There just is not any other viable way to play it right now. The other abilities just do not work for the way you need to play Arbiter. You have to rely on your perfect balance in order to get that Divinity, in order to keep casting those encounter powers to keep outputting damage. It is a little bit sad. I would like there to be adjustments to some other abilities here to change the playstyle a little bit. Angel of Death could have potential, but the way it works, it's just not viable at all. Like basically perfect balance is giving you like 8 encounter powers for free every time you do your rotation with Prophecy of Doom. Like Angel of Death's not giving that. Like you're going to get this maybe once every 60 seconds and that's it. You need like 26 stacks. That's 26 encounter powers before being able to get those stacks. And how are you going to get the Divinity to actually cast that many? Your encounter powers cost a lot. So there are a few things that the devs could do to improve the quality of life and the damage output a little bit with Arbiter. And in my opinion, it revolves around just simply buff Prophecy of Doom to 50%. Change it so that the stacks from Perfect Balance will not expire when you get downed. And from there, just decrease the Divinity cost of Forgemasters down to just 240, and that would help a ton without really needing then the 25% Divinity arms to be able to more comfortably do your rotations. Other than that, yes, I would like some adjustments to some other abilities, but it's not overly necessary if people learn to play like this, and it just works right now. And of course, yeah, fix the bug with Divine Equilibrium, so it is possible to use other bonuses to increase your maximum divinity without actually losing damage. Like using these arms, you're losing up to 7.5% extra damage, like we said earlier. But that's enough with Arbiter. It is a bit of fun to play, but it is quite the challenge as well. Timing is key, and your rotation is super strict. You have to follow exactly what I'm doing here to maximize your damage output. Just be aware with the last Forgemasters here, you might not want to cast it because you'll end up with 3 burning judgments, and you'll see me do that in some time of my test, because basically you can, with fast enough timing, get out, say, that 5th Forgemasters. You'll see that with this rotation here, for example. We go Prophecy, Artifact, Daily Power, Forgemasters, Daunting, Forgemasters, Daunting, Forgemasters, Daunting, Forgemasters, Daunting, Forgemasters, and you can see we get that other Forgemasters, that 5th one, out during the artifact call. But you're at these 3 and 2 stacks, which means you need to just build up a little bit of divinity. Then for your next rotation, you just need to keep in mind, you go your Prophecy, and then you have to use the Daunting first, and then Forgemasters, Daunting, and then let Perfect Balance proc, Forgemasters, Daunting, Forgemasters, Daunting, and make sure you're set with those 2 stacks before the next rotation. That is, again, just to squeeze out a little bit of extra damage there, but it could throw you off, so maybe you want to leave that one out. Hopefully that all helps, and ultimately we will compare this versus the other classes. I will say Cleric does fall a little bit behind, particularly the top performing classes, and even some of the mid classes in single target right now. And you throw in the factor of unreliability with regards to have to being super strict. You cannot go down in combat, or you're just really screwed with your rotation, which just makes Cleric DPS very challenging to play, and you aren't really rewarded for that either, like Whisper Knife is. So it could definitely use some buffs. Simply increasing Prophecy of Doom to 50% would be a huge help with that. So once again, thanks for watching. A special thank you to all of these channel members, and we'll see you guys around. Goodbye for now. Oh, and yeah, and if you just want to do the spam build and setup, just like this with non-stop encounter powers, well, it can be very handy if you're on PC to use a set of keybinds that will just automatically have you consume the pips before you cast an encounter power. And that's with this right here. I'll put them in the video description below. Again, PC only. But it does mean you don't really have a choice whether you consume the pips or not. You will just automatically do so whenever you cast the encounter power.